Greetings, fellow men. Servus, Männer. This is Red Pill Germany again. And today I want to talk about cultural appropriation. So, cultural appropriation is the new bullying technique that was cooked up by crazy, insane social justice warriors in the Anglosphere. They basically go into their witch laboratory where they cook up some crazy insanity in their cauldron of irrational thoughts. And sooner or later, and this is why I'm interested in that, I'm sure that they will try to bring it over the Atlantic to good old Europe. So first of all, I want to discuss briefly what I understand by culture. So me as a German, I think that culture is all the artifacts and phenomena that you get when the human spirit interacts with the natural world. So that means when you paint a picture, when you use a hammer and a chisel to make a marble sculpture, or when you greet your fellow man, because other people are also part of the natural world. So even customs like dance, greetings, and social interaction are part of culture, but also artifacts, technology, and works of art, of course. So by my definition, pure thinking would not be culture actually, unless you really share it with someone, but that is just my definition. Who knows, right? Maybe because we Germans are weird in that way, that we would separate the spirit from the body or the material world. If you say, of course, that this is just one thing, that your spirit is also part of your body, like part of your brain or something, then yeah, then of course thinking would also be part of culture, obviously. So you might have heard recently about these people on American college campuses being accused of sporting dreadlocks when they were white, because dreadlocks is a black hairdress, and if a white person has dreadlocks, then they're basically appropriating or misappropriating that culture. That means they're taking something away from the minority people, and yeah, that is a really bad and oppressive thing to do. Also last year, when it was Halloween season, of course, the cultural appropriation became a topic again when people were maybe having Mexican hats and ponchos or something, dressing as Mexicans, or putting on slutty kimonos to parties and while they're not Asian. So you can see already that the target of most of these accusations are, of course, white people, because white people are always the target for these bullying tactics, because, well, you can just make them feel guilty so well. If you would try to do that with any other ethnicity or any other nation or culture, they would just kick your ass, I think. But white people, with their constant white guilt, they're the perfect juicy targets. But the example that really cracked me up was when Miley Cyrus was twerking. Some black people complained that twerking is black culture and therefore Miley Cyrus is not allowed to do that. Am I really gonna comment on that? I mean, I would probably go to hell, or I would end up in prison, so I think I'd rather shut up now. So of course, for SJWs, all these things are basically working like in a one-way street. There is no reverse racism, for example, because it always depends on who is the dominant group and who is the oppressed group. However, I don't really work that way. To me, things are not working like this. I don't accept this narrative of the dominant culture and the oppressed culture. I mean, unless you talk about Nazi Germany or some really oppressive state like that, I don't really buy into that. I think you're as oppressed in a free democratic country as you want to believe you are. So when I think about socially acceptable behavior, to me, rather Immanuel Kant comes to mind with his categorical imperative that whenever you do something, you should ask yourself, would that be a general rule of behavior for the general public? Or in other terms, what if everyone acted like that, huh? So for me, there really are no one-way streets. So I want to look at how the world would look like if people would also scream, oh, you can't do that, that is cultural appropriation, when it worked in the other direction. Let's have a look at this. So if I remember correctly, the automobile was invented in Stuttgart, Germany. Now, the Americans then later culturally appropriated our invention and added the assembly line, which was awesome because it made cars cheaper and actually affordable for a broader public. Then later, of course, the Japanese people, especially Professor Toyoda with a D that is, for the company Toyota with a T that is, in the 1970s, revolutionized the production process. And that actually came back to Germany, where we now make really awesome cars. And I would say, together with the South Koreans, the Japanese and the Germans built the world's greatest cars. I mean, maybe it's not Maserati, but at least normal middle class people can afford it. So this is a great example of what could be called cultural appropriation, but it was actually beneficial to everyone. Now you might say, wait a second, this is science and technology. This is meant to be shared. I mean, this is not really culture. As I said earlier, according to my definition, this is culture. But if you have an infantile, naive definition of culture that is only things that are pretty and nice, like paintings and music, then I have another example for you that also fits your very narrow definition of culture, like the fine arts or the performing arts. What about the valved trumpet? The keyed trumpet was invented in Germany by Blumel and Stölzel, who filed a patent in 1818. I mean, before that time, there were instruments, brass wind instruments, which are incorrectly referred to as trumpets because you really don't know what it is. Is it a trumpet? Is it a bugle? Is it a horn? Is it a cornet? Who knows? You blow air in and the sound comes out. And everyone liked the sound really, but you did really lack the chromatic expression. That means the frequency ratio that is a white to a neighboring black key on a piano. And this half note is necessary in order to have the full chromatic frequency range that allows you to play European scales or Greek scales actually. Now what they added was basically 3 valves that makes it possible to change the tube length in which the air column is vibrating very easily by the click of a button basically. And in this way you have the full potential of a chromatic instrument for musical expression with the awesome sound of a trumpet. Now this was actually a really recent development, 1818, that is not too long ago, and it was invented by Germans in Germany. Now would you really want to live in a world where Louis Armstrong or Miles Davis were not allowed to lay their hands on this evil German white instrument because it is a German piece of culture? That is ridiculous. I mean, we wouldn't have jazz nowadays if it weren't for cultural appropriation. So I think it is really a great thing. If you ask me, we need more cultural appropriation. Also these so-called Arabic numbers, which are actually, well, they're as Arabic as Native Americans are eating curry, because they're actually Indian numbers. But anyway, it is really awesome that they were appropriated, because otherwise they wouldn't have made it to Europe, and then we wouldn't have been able to calculate that easily, because the old Roman notation is actually a big pain in the butt. So you can see I'm very pro cultural appropriation actually, and the only reason why I'm so annoyed about this whole thing sitting here in Europe is that I can already see how they try to bring that somehow over the Atlantic. I mean, they tried that with rape culture. There was a case in Canada, this Gian Gomeshi trial, for example, and Diana Davidson from Feminism LOL did a really great job, and she did a lot of videos dissecting every detail of this horrendous farce. And the funny thing is that we actually had a case in Germany that is almost the same. It involved a television meteorologist, Kachelmann was the name of the guy, and he was also accused by a couple of women that he raped them, even though, well, he just refused to marry them actually. They thought that they can cash in on this celebrity basically, but well, he just strung them along, which is, last time I checked, not a criminal offense. So yeah, they wanted to take revenge that they were just used for sex and he didn't marry them, or he was just dating them and he refused to marry them, when they thought maybe that they would be Mrs. Kachelmann and had never have to work again, probably. But so they just they got together and they made up a story that he raped them. Yeah? Very similar to this Gian Gomeshi trial. But rape culture is not really on top of SJW's list anymore right now, because if you would, first of all, if you would say rape culture, you would have to use the German word, and if you would say Vergewaltigungskultur, I think everyone would just ask, wait a second, you talking about Islam here? Because the funny thing is that there is a lot of rape in Germany at the moment, yes, but it's not committed by the perpetrators that the SJWs would like to see. You don't have any frat boys or anyone you could blame, because the public would immediately think about Islam and African migrants, of course. So you would need to explain to everyone for 5 hours, no, I'm not really meaning these foreigners coming into this country illegally and committing rapes. No, 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 I want to talk about white, privileged, entitled men who commit these rapes. And I think you would have to explain at great length why you want to talk about white people raping and not other people raping, and I think they moved that down in their priority list. So I have the feeling that cultural appropriation, especially with all the new cultures that we got into our country in the last decades, could be the next big SJW talking point in mainland Europe. So I really wonder what angle that they will try to tackle this with, because I don't think they could really make us feel bad for eating kebab or ordering shishas at a Turkish cafe, because we're actually their customers. And I think the Turkish people would be really angry if their best customers would all of a sudden be blamed for cultural appropriation. So luckily that is not my problem. I don't have to really think too hard about that. I can just see what's coming and make fun about it when it happens. Thanks for stopping by again today. Hope to catch you guys again soon. Have a great day. Servus, Kameraden.